Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Let's what are we today? Um yeah, so cuz we can talk about this forever. Let's talk about the north again. Let's talk about the north again. I know, I talked about 6 months ago. I had a video called I had a stream called uh why Theon is the key to the North. But let's go over this kind of information again, but more from the perspective of like how the story unfolds for us in A Song of Ice and Fire. So obviously, here's our map. Here's our map of the North, and I don't know how big my here's the thing is my cursor is probably not that big, so maybe I don't know. Let's put Stannis on the map here. So yeah. We got Stannis on the map. He's right there, right outside Winterfell, having a good time. All right. So he is of course looking for allies, and we kind of get this idea that um well, in the story that he is allied with Moore's Umber. And Moore's Umber, he is when we look at their family, um, we know that like through the story, there's a couple things about them. We know that they want Hornwood lands. That's mentioned in A Clash of Kings. And we also know that he's missing a daughter. And there's some theories that his daughter is really Rowan the spear wife and things like this. But this was randomly mentioned that Moore's Umber is missing a daughter. And so there is this question of like, okay, if Stannis has made an alliance with Mance Rayder and the Wildlings, and he's also made an alliance with the Umbers, and when he sent the Wrong Way Rangers, which was in the Wrong Way Rangers incident is in A Dance with Dragons when he sends the Smiler and the Slayer, Justin Massey and Gilbert Faring, not Gilbert Faring, the Moth Knight. You could all scream at me. Uh, Horp, Richard Horp, right? Yeah, Richard Horp. So I think he sends them down, and he gets an alliance with the Umbers, which is a little surprising. We don't actually hear why that alliance happens, but it happens. In fact, he only gets half of them, right? Because supposedly Horthor is on the inside, and so some have theorized that perhaps part of this deal to get the Umbers is a trade for that daughter, and the person that has that daughter would be Mance Rayder. So he's somehow getting from the Wildlings. But what is he offering the Wildlings in return? Yeah, I mean, I suppose he's allowing Mance to live, but so that might be one of the things is that like okay, he gets Mance agrees to Mance survives, and in return he gets Moore's Umber's daughter, and then he can supply Moore's Umber's daughter to the Umbers to get the Umbers. Then he then heads into the let's see, his other allies. He supposedly gets Karstark, but he doesn't really have Karstark. But what's interesting about Karstark is that the big person that's missing is Harry and Karstark. And if Harry and Karstark ever went north, he might have passed through White Harbor, which means that Harry and Karstark would be in the Manderleys' possession. So how do you get the Manderleys? Well, the Manderleys also seem to want Hornwood, but the Manderleys also claim later that they want Rickon. So Davos is trying to get Rickon, and so you could probably, plus the Umbers and the Manderleys have been working together, so you get the Manderley Umber alliance together, and and try to work on that by but it is kind of out of nowhere that they want Rickon, by the way, because originally what Umber and Manderley wanted was Hornwood lands. They wanted to marry a Hornwood or have somebody marry into the Hornwoods. Let's see if I can put on some text. Can I add some freaking text here? Where's my text? Overlays. Let's add some text. New text box overlay. Here we go. What do I got here? Do I got a new text box? Where's my new text box overlay? Jesus. These things you try to do here. I'm sorry, my people. Fine. Forget it. Forget it. Why do I even have visuals? Why do I even bother? But so we kind of have this thing now. Okay. He gets Harry and Karstark to try to get the Karstarks. He needs to get but maybe he's actually offering them Hornwood lands or marriage into Hornwood lands. But really to have them have legitimacy over Hornwood, you need to have a Hornwood. And the only Hornwood that's really left is the bastard. And he is part of the Glovers, but then it's taken by Asha. And so what he needs to give to the Glovers is Asha is Theon in order to get back the Hornwood bastard. So maybe you could marry that Hornwood bastard to Manderley's daughter or something, And so that's how they all kind of like link in here. And so you get this kind of like weird net, right? So you've got this like daughter from the Umbers to get trading between the Umbers and the Wildlings with this daughter for support. And then you've kind of got this Harry and Karstark situation to try to get Harry and Karstark in order for maybe in return for Rickon, but maybe also in turn for Hornwood lands, because that's what they wanted in a Clash of Kings. But to get Hornwood lands, you really need the bastard. But then again, wasn't the other one was Tallheart? Wasn't. Let me look at the. You get this. What's her relationship? So she's only got. I'm trying to remember how they. Maybe they don't have a. Maybe they don't have a connection to Tallheart. I'm trying to remember. I thought there was something with Tallheart too. But you got to get so it's this idea of like secure. It's this very complicated net that I've never quite figured out on how you could all get it to work and how you could get everybody together in on it. With doing some sort of weird trade. And if you're going to be doing these trades, like why have everybody at Winterfell? And like what's going, let's say Rowan is really Umber's daughter. Like why would you bring her to Winterfell, and what trade is going on there? Like he's securing Theon and tossing him over a wall. Shouldn't he have thrown Rowan over? Because wouldn't Moors want Rowan back? But Rowan doesn't die, does she? Is Rowan the one that dies? Oh well. I try to so many times I've tried to get it. It does say she dies. Oh man. So maybe she was supposed to go with Theon to go over, and he never comes out. So Rowan is killed. So the Umbers get shirked of what they wanted back. Maybe that was it. Maybe he was supposed to toss Theon over the wall with Rowan to get both Umber support and the trade because Theon is needed to get back the Glover hostages. And then the Glover hostages gets the Glovers, but you're also getting the Hornwood bastard. And then you could take that Hornwood bastard and you could marry the Hornwood bastard to, say, Manderley's daughter. Um, and then the Manderleys would get Hornwood. Uh, uh, But whatever the case, the Umbers seem to be loyal anyway and get killed. So Mors Umber gets killed. But would Hothor? Because with Hothor, would Hothor care? I don't know. Whatever the case, was whenever we get to the point of writing the fiction, it's one of the reasons I've been putting off the fan fiction for the North, is that this complicated web on like what would be going on these trading these hostages around, um, getting it straight. And I've tried so many times and I just can't get it. Just can't figure it out. Like what's going on? What's this master plan? How they could have all discussed it, or maybe it's just we're looking for something that isn't there, and it's just going. Um, anyway, we'll be a dad soon. Any advice, book you would recommend? There is one book that I'm sure somebody's given it to you, or you've seen it. This book is it's called Be Prepared. I'm sure you've seen it. Where is it? This is the one. It's a pretty good book. Um, on fatherhood. Uh, it'll make you feel better. I mean, it's not like super detailed, but what's sort of nice about it is that you kind of get inside the head of a few very important things. Like when you when you first have a kid and the baby is first born, like more often than not, the newborn looks like a fucking wreck. It just looks like a wreck. And a lot of people are really worried when their baby is born. They're like, oh my gosh, like, is my kid okay? And it's like, no, this is what a normal newborn baby looks like. A normal newborn baby looks like a fucking wreck. And it like explains stuff like that. There's little things in there like father anxiety, like will I ever have sex again? Like new father anxieties, like um things like that. There's some stuff that like I never that didn't ever work for me. Like they're like, oh, ways to be a good dad, just put stuff on your head and little babies laugh. Nobody's ever laughed at me by putting stuff on my head, but this is a pretty good book. But I don't know if there's any like grand advice I can give for being a dad. Just that you know it's you're gonna put in the time, and it's a lot of stuff at once, and just try to be patient, and remember that like um being like your relationship with your wife is a full-time job, and very important as well, and you've got to maintain that relationship despite all of the stress that having a kid has. Like there's definitely those moments where you're just like exhausted, and you're both exhausted, and you like want to scream at each other, and you just have to like step back and be patient and know that like it's normal, and that everybody goes through this kind of stuff, but like also just like step back and be patient, and try to work on that you know um so I don't know. I mean, this is the best book I know about, but it's also watch your back. You're probably gonna hurt your back on the first kid, lifting him out of the crib, and like try to keep him close to the body, or else you're gonna hurt yourself. Um, have you ever watched Black Sails on Stars? It's not historically accurate, but it's really great. I have not. I've heard about it from a couple people. Um, it's funny because uh, did you guys ever see the rant from Ash versus the Evil Dead, and he's like the reason the show failed is because it was on Stars, and it's like, yeah, fair enough. Um, Black Sails. Oh, it's fairly new actually. I think, but when did it start here? Oh no, it's been on a while. Wait, it's four seasons. Are they been spread apart quite a bit? Okay, no. 2017 is when it concluded. So 2013 to 2017. Okay, it's not that many episodes. Only 38 episodes total. Sometimes I need to. I don't know. It's like one of those things. Like, oh, what if I have time? I started watching Blue Eyed Samurai, and so slowly trying to get through that. I finished watching the Marvels with my wife. It was um it was not a very impressive movie, but that's what I've been watching lately. If I have time, this was a super busy weekend for me. Um, what family would you want to be born into in a Game of Thrones? Um, hmm. You want to be in in kind of the safer families, right? I mean, realistically, like, look, Dorne seems like a lot more fun than the rest of Westeros. I mean, you've got you know you've got a society where you can actually um, have some freedom, and the food there seems more interesting. The women there seem more interesting. So I mean, I guess I'd rather be like, I mean, maybe the Martell family itself would be a little toxic, but I can't say anything wrong about, like, let's say you're born into, I don't know, House Lady Bright, and you're just like you're some other Dornish household where you're just like, you know, having a good time in Dorne. Good sunny weather, spicy food. It seems like a more interesting place than and a better place than any place north. If not, like, I'd probably be rather be born in the free cities. But you know, I think I'm just gonna choose Lady Bright, House Lady Bright, as a seems like a pretty good one. Um, Thoughts on Feast for Dragons helps perspective. Now, I think you're talking about, like, the reading order, right? Like Feast with Dragons. Um, let's see here. So there's these different reading orders that people talk about, like the boiled leather reading order, and the a Feast with Dragons, which you can kind of see. I brought it up here. Um, the what's going on here with my windows? So the thing about these reading orders and they they're interesting in that you can parallel some things and start thinking about stuff that um that you normally, like, would not connect. So for instance, uh I think when John is observing the burning of Rattleshirt, that's happening around the same time as Cersei is having the Tower of the Hand burned. And you wouldn't think about that doing a regular Feast for Crows, a Dance with Dragons, like, read. Um, but you kind of think about those things when the chapters are so close together. So you think there's certain parallels. Um, the the John Samwell thing, which is just like, this is the same chapter kind of doubled, um, with not that much new information. So such a weird kind of thing in there. I think it's George just creating pages. But so there's there's that kind of thing. I mean, I guess if you read them one after the other, you'd catch that thing later. But um, that's the weird thing about this like Samuel 1 John 2 thing. So I think by the end of the Sam chapter in a Feast for Crows, you figure out the baby swap. And so by the time you come around to reading John 2, there's not much new information because, like, yes, the baby swap is in there from John's perspective, but you already figured, because Sam figured it out, like, you know the information. So when John 2 comes, it's just such a weird waste of a chapter. I mean, there's certain motivation stuff in there. So I suppose if you read one after the other, Samuel 1, then John 2, you'd get, it would be a little more of a surprise. Like, oh, why am I reading this from the other person's perspective? Oh, there's been a baby swap, you know? So there's a few things like that. Um, but of course, like I don't think in reality the combined reading order works for certainly a first reader, just because it ruins the Quentin surprise of the Princess in the Tower chapter, right? So I'm trying to think, like Princess in the oh, I suppose, like, I see what they've done here is in order to preserve the surprise. I think in Boiled Leather, Merchant's Man is going to be earlier, but I think in this version, to preserve the surprise, they put Merchant's Man right after Princess in the Tower in order to preserve the surprise of Quentin. So that's, yeah, good on them for doing that. Um, the but some of these things I wouldn't necessarily I don't know, like there's always a cost to everything, right? Like um, here he puts Samuel 5 all the way at the end here. And that's just not right. Sem 5 doesn't happen that late in the story. No, 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 no. So, like I understand why he does that, but no, like Sem 5 comes way, 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 way earlier. Um the I get it. I don't know. There's certain things that also will never work out because, like, Jamie 7, A Feast for Crows, ending the Jamie story on that note is such a great ending. And if you're just like picking up with Jamie, what, 6 chapters later, like that completely ruins the epic ending that Jamie has. You need that break. Um, so I mean, there's always costs. There's always costs to everything with every reading order. Um, which is too bad. But I'm just thinking of those like moments when I read Feast where you read that last Jamie chapter and you're like, "Whoa, what an epic ending to the Jamie story," you know. Bridget Mindler's ground satellite is this step in spacefaring. Bridget Mindler is like a old like Disney Channel person who like started a satellite company. I don't think her getting into satellites is really much for spacefaring. I mean, some shooting things up into orbit privately um, for satellites is pretty far from going through space and getting to Mars or whatever. I wouldn't put too much into it. It's sort of like looking at Elon Musk's and SpaceX. Like, yeah, maybe you can get stuff cheaper into maybe you can get satellites cheaper into space, but are we anywhere closer to getting to Mars? No, no, like no. Um, Once again, asking Preston to make himself some spaghetti pasta and eat it on stream to record himself eating. The chat remembers. Yes, yes, I know, I know. All, yes. The had some noodles today. Had some pad thai today. Today was an exhausting day. There's no way I could have had time. I had to go to a kid's birthday party this evening. It was and So no pasta this week. Maybe next week. Maybe keep putting it off. Maybe next week. Maybe next week. Solve the Supreme Court problems in 5 minutes. Go. Uh, Now, of course, like the sad thing about like anytime people talk about the problems of the Supreme Court, it inevitably starts leading to speculation about people dying, and you really just don't want to go into that conversation. Um, but I look, the Supreme Court is fundamentally like flawed in the sense that people are justices for life. Like currently, we're in a really bad place in America with the Supreme Court. Um, I mean, there should be many more people on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should be like 50 people. Okay, really. It shouldn't be nine, where the the death of one single person can have massive changes to hundreds of millions of people's lives. Like that's ridiculous. Okay, there should be like 50 people in the Supreme Court, and it should not be for life. Okay, that's just silly. Um, Also, they should probably be elected. They should probably shouldn't be selected by senators and stuff like that. This is getting to be ridiculous. I mean, these are major decisions that affect hundreds of millions of people, and it's the whim of when people have to happen to die, and like the shenanigans of the Senate. No country should run like this. The United States is dealing with so many problems, because of our Supreme Court being just this weird, archaic, um, like method system. Okay. um I mean, even though our situation right now is really bad, it's super bad. But even if you said like, oh gosh, you wake up tomorrow and Clarence Thomas has died and Scalia died and Biden appoints like two liberal justices in order to like balance things off again, and starts fixing things, it's still fundamentally a broken system. Like eventually there's going to be another bad situation where somebody dies and you get some crazies on the court. So it's just not a it's the whole thing is just a disaster. The whole thing is a disaster. Um yeah, no. We But I don't know. Yeah, how do you change the constitution to I mean, honestly, would anyone, if you were designing a country, like have a Supreme Court system with lifetime appointments with nine people? Like it's ridiculous. Like ridiculous. Um, how did Elio and Linda go from being super fans to working with George? Have you ever considered using your friendship with them to reach out and help George finish wins? Um, Well, keep in mind, Elio and Linda have been in the community a very long time. Or I mean, they were the community from the beginning. So I think when you knew George back when it was more intimate to go to cons and talk to him and have conversations. It was a different time. So um, but then there's the question of like, um, do I have any like need to become friends with George or like talk to him or something like that? I don't know if like I super have a desire to do that. I mean, George seems fine, but like in my life, I'm pretty busy, and I don't think he wants any help writing, and I don't think he would want to talk to fans about people helping him. I don't think that's just like on his mind. I just don't think that's he's never talked about that. He already has people around him that could probably help him, and he hasn't reached out to them. So it seems like this is something he wants to do on his own by himself. It's his book series, and that's his choice. Um But I just wouldn't even know like how to talk to George, or what would we talk about, or things like that. It just wouldn't work out. Now, keep in mind, like even Elio and Linda, who I think back in the day had more access and more conversations with George. I think they have, as time went on, less and less access to him than they used to. Um, the I think they used to be able to like email him and talk to him, call him on the phone. I don't think that happens anymore. So I mean, even Elio and Linda, like they don't have the same access as they used to. Um, everything Things blew up. So, hmm, let's see. Do you think writers like George and Stephen King would have been great writers despite their college educations? um, Hello, Mr. Carmine.
Did you just pass the Elio and Linda question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you? I know you try to be as neutral as possible, but I have to ask your opinion on this in regards to Linda. I have to ask you if you don't
Mm.
mind.
What's up?
Um,
What's up?
do you think the reason that George doesn't fuck with them as much anymore is because of the controversy with Linda?
No, no, I don't.
Hmm.
I don't think that's it at all. Um, and plus like it, it means he would just deal with like Elio. I mean, like right. Um, I no, I think he's a very very busy man now. And so it's and he's got other things. He's got a personal life that consumes a lot of his time, and you know, I just don't think I just don't think I don't know he even wants to necessarily. Plus, is he even like dealing with wins, talking about wins? Like he's probably sick of it. He's just like whatever. He's got other things going on now. He can call up Ryan Condal, so he doesn't have to hang out with Elio and Linda. But no, I don't actually think it's that. Um, from what I can tell about George R. R. Martin, he is a very, very loyal kind of friend to a fault, probably. He's kept the same. You look at his friend list, and it's the same fucking people he's been friends with for 30, 40 years.
But those people aren't going on Twitter and tweeting dumbass things like Linda is. So
Yeah. Well, you know. I mean, maybe it would be, but he's still, the thing is, like, after she did a bunch of crazy stuff, he still did the World of Ice and Fire with them. Now, granted, that was a book many many years in the making, so maybe he was already committed. But then he still did stuff later, like is it Rise of the Dragon? Was that
I don't
them
think that was
again?
Elio and Linda. I think that was just him by himself.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right. Um, Trying to see here. No. Rise of the Dragon has Elio and Linda again there. I mean, it might just be
I'm
because
assuming
it might be because it's simply a um
because of the World of Ice and
it's
Fire,
just the
because
World
of
of
the
Ice
stuff
and
they wrote.
Fire like cut
Yeah.
down.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, hard to say. I mean, he's he gets in trouble too. I mean, not Linda kind of trouble, but like
Does he know what is George? Technically, what is George really doing?
remember he
Like,
got in trouble. He got in trouble when he went to that awards show and he like made a
oh fuck
comment about
that!
having no
Fuck those
dick or
people!
something.
Fuck
Yeah,
those people that complained about that. That was a nothing burger. That was literally the
it
definition of a
was. It
nothing. It
was a
it's
nothing
just people
burger.
looking to complain. It reminds me of like that guy we discussed about the Lord of the Rings thing, saying George is criticizing Tolkien for quote unquote clout. Like,
Yeah,
fuck
yeah,
off.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I just wouldn't. Also, like now that George has a bunch of people like constantly trying to bother him, I don't want to be another person to ever bother him. So I don't know. And maybe that's the same with like Elio and Linda. They just don't feel like they want to bother him anymore. You know.
Honestly, I think George saw your fanfic idea for Quinn. He's like, "Fuck this guy," and so
um, where do you think? Where did Stephen King go to university? He went to University of Maine. Da, 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 da. Where did I'm trying to think here? Yeah, he went to University of Maine. Um, do you think George and Stephen King would have been great writers? With, I mean, it's kind of without their college educations. Um, I mean, I guess it's like, I mean, so George R. R. Martin has an undergraduate and a master's in journalism. So he did spend like a lot of time writing and reading, but he was going to be writing and reading anyway. And he was doing those, he was doing short stories and writing like, and practicing his craft like during that time. Um, I mean, I guess you're always gonna run into the thing about university is, which a movie like Goodwill Hunting gets wrong, because Goodwill Hunting, the Matt Damon's character, which is just like everything's wrong about that movie. And it's a good movie. Um, I mean, because one, Robin Williams is fucking incredible in it, uh, it's such a silly premise. But like at one point, Matt Damon is trashing universities because he's just like, oh, it's just like you could just get a library card and learn the same stuff. And you're like, well, not exactly. Like the big thing about university is that you're hanging out with a bunch of peers and you absorb knowledge from like being in a group of peers and seeing what they're doing and stealing ideas from them, becoming friends with people. um, you know 18-year-olds don't know how to live, but if you're friends with a whole bunch of other 18-year-olds, you kind of like maybe can figure it out and get ideas from them and stuff like that. I don't know how much education like I extracted from any professor or any TA, but they force you into um, a lot of self learning, and you're around a bunch of people that are also in a process of learning. So I think that people discount like how important it is to just be around peers um, in a university experience. Um, I don't know. I mean, Carmine, your university experience though, you didn't have like a campus, right? You were a commuter.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't have like no, I know, but you're like you don't have the classic like I don't even like it's a minority of Americans, but it's like what we think about like because of
Mm,
movies that like, oh,
right.
you're going away from home and you're living in a dorm. And that's a minority of people in America, right? Because like half of Americans go to college, and then like I think it's close to like three-quarters of college students are commuter students. Like they live at home. Well, but like we have this idea that they all people go off to dorms and stuff like that. I mean, that was my experience, but like it's actually a very small part of most people's educations. So, I mean, I think, obviously I think going to college was an important step. Um, uh, Both of them probably would have gone into writing anyway, just knowing how much like they were big readers and stuff like that, and were into writing even before college. They were pretty dedicated individuals, you know. But obviously, I think it adds something to it. I don't, great. I don't know. I mean, different, but you know, it's hard to say. What are you gonna? George R. R. Martin's education was journalism, so I don't know. um, Love old man story time. Can we get more? I don't know. Carmine, what sort of old man stories do you want to hear from me?
I don't think they're safe for work.
I sometimes tell Carmine some racy shit. Trying to think of like some sort of good like old man story time kind of story that also is just like somewhat short. Um um oh man, I don't know. These it's like today I was driving my kid back from uh driving my kids around, and you know, I'm in the far right lane, and you know, my lane is ending. It's one of those situations where the two lanes merge into one, and guy's just accelerating because he wants to like create a situation. And so like I accelerate in order to like stay in my lane, and then he gets angry at me, and he like pulls around me and tries to cut me off and give me the finger, and and cause an incident. And then I just was just like, I've got my whole family here. I'm just going to ignore him. And it was almost like he was upset that he was getting ignored. He really wanted me to like pull up beside his car to have like some sort of like middle finger back and forth, but it just didn't happen for him today. That's just like so common in America, isn't it? Don't you know what I'm talking about, Carmine?
I might.
You were that other guy. Um, honestly, how do you see Stannis versus Roose play out? You know, um prior to the show and thinking about the show, I probably had a different idea of like how it was going to go. I think the show showing Roose killing showing Ramsay killing um Roose um, made me think about that as an option more. And then when you look at the situation of Winterfell, you go, oh, that actually works out really well for Ramsay, you know? And so I don't know if there will be honestly a Stannis versus Roose. Like it kind of does make sense for Ramsay to kill Roose when you look at Winterfell. Like you know, the 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 biggest contingent of people in Winterfell the are the Boltons. Number two is the Freys, and then you kind of go down. And so the fact that like Ramsay got the Freys to be ejected, the one group that was super loyal to Roose and Roose only, while you know the other people's like you know they can follow Ramsay for whatever reason. I mean, people will argue, okay, well, maybe the other northern forces like hate Ramsay because of the Hornwood incident, but there's just not that many of them. You know, if it were the Freys and everybody else, then it would be a problem because the Freys are straight up pro Roose, anti Ramsay. You know, so the fact that the Freys got sent out is just like that's kind of the nail in the nail in Roose's coffin, really. So I don't know if there's going to be a Stannis versus Roose. I kind of think that maybe by the time Stannis makes it to Winterfell, Roose is dead, and that it's Ramsay in control of the Bolton forces, which is kind of too bad. I mean, I think Roose is a really cool character in his own right, but oh, so how was your day today, Carmine?
It was alright. Spent most of it building my computer, putting new stuff in, taking old stuff out.
Did you want to talk about you said there was some news you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, some Aegon and Duncan Egg stuff, and potential release date for House of the Dragon season 2. Do you want to take care of Ross's super chat first?
Sure, sure. How does everyone know it's fake Arya? Stannis wouldn't send off the key to the north if she's real, right? Um so I think Arya said that she had been to White Harbor, and um well, first off, like Jaime Lannister, when he sees Jane Poole, doesn't think it's Arya, and he knows fucking nothing. Like he knows nothing, and he's just like, um, and he's a completely self-absorbed dude, and he looks at Jane Poole and he's like, she doesn't seem the right age, like he figures it out immediately, and Jamie's a fucking idiot. I mean, but um, let me think here. Where's the actual quote? Um, he says, so the quote here is, Jamie had never paid much attention to Arya Stark, but it seemed to him this girl was older. I understand you're to be married. I'm wed to Lord, and so he then says, like, whatever, with a last glance at the girl, he wondered if there was much resemblance. Not that it mattered. The real Arya Stark was buried in an unmarked grave in Flea Bottom in all likelihood, with her brothers dead and both parents. Like, who would dare name this one a fraud? You know, so Jaime Lannister figures it out immediately that Jane Poole is not Arya. Um, and so in that sense, like she's the wrong age. Like it's they can do the same calculus as Jamie. Now, I think though that Arya specifically had been to White Harbor. Let me think about. Yeah, in A Feast for Crows, it says she had visited White Harbor with her father twice, but she knew King's Landing better. So Arya has met Wyman Manderly twice. So Wyman Manderly, especially, like is going to know that that's not Arya, and he can just go and tell anybody. I mean, they can have their little conversations where they'd be like, "Come on, that's not her." Plus, like now Theon is also talking about like eye color being wrong and stuff like that, but really they're the wrong age. I mean, like somebody, but again, like who's gonna care? Who's gonna say anything? Now, would Stannis, um, would Stannis? The more interesting question is what does Stannis think, and what would Stannis do? Now, he kind like the thing about like getting Arya is he kind of thinks of her as an afterthought. Like, well, it doesn't really matter. He's replacing his plan was to take Val and marry her to somebody to take Winterfell. So he's kind of uninterested in Arya Stark as a political pawn. He kind of just wants to give her to Jon as like a thank you, as an afterthought. Like I'll save your. I think his message was what I'll save your sister if I can. Um, and I can't see any reason why he'd want to piss off Jon. Like if he got Jane Poole and he's looking at Jane Poole and he knows that that's not Arya Stark, would he really send her to the wall and piss off Jon? Um, he'd probably just keep her in camp and be like, I don't. But then again, there's a war happening, so why? It's one of those things where like, would Stannis really care? The thing is, I don't think Stannis would see Arya as the key to the North because one, she's a girl, so he's just like, why is she the key to the North? I'm switching Winterfell's like ruler anyway, um, and who knows if he even knows about Manderly's desire to get Rickon. Um, because I'm thinking there is a chance that he would know about Rickon if Manderley told if Manderley's communication went up to Moore's Umber, and Moore's Umber happened to pass the information to Tycho Nestoris, and Tycho Nestoris happened to pass the information to Stannis. But that's a lot of ifs there. I mean, it's possible that that information passed, but um, I don't think he'd care very much about Arya. Because again, he wants to marry Val. Anyway, so so Carmine, what were you saying? I guess Carmine went to the bathroom. Um, brainstorm what Bruce's master plan and endgame. This is a question that because I've always wondered about the Boltons, and I never did a Bolton series, and I always felt that that was the one series that I could have done. I think Roose Bolton is clearly a very conservative player in the original Game of Thrones, keeping his soldiers last, keeping his options open, and then switching sides. Um, grabbing Fat Walda, which he claims he likes. He claims he likes Fat Walda. Um, there was that book though that he burned, which is really weird. So we're not sure if he's interested in things like prophecy. But nonetheless, he likes Fat Walda. She's pregnant. She's gonna have a kid. Um, I, you know, I think he is. I mean, it's odd because a lot of people are like, why is Roose Bolton creating this conflict between his bastard and uh, the Frey and his child with Fat Walda? Like, why do something like legitimize uh, Ramsay, which is only going to create conflict between him and his son. Um, I mean, it may be that he thinks that Ramsay is a useful idiot. That Ramsay gets to go around doing all of this crazy stuff that like Roose um, is would like to do, but he can then just blame it on his son rather than himself. There might be something like that, like creating all of this chaos in the north with Lady Hornwood and stuff like that. Um, and that uh, in the end, like it's a good cop, bad cop situation where Ramsey's just going around causing all this trouble, and Roose is like, oh, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. Um, but then again, with the murder of Little Walder and things like that, like Roose like seems legitimately upset about those sorts of things. So maybe that his calculation was off, that he couldn't actually control Ramsay. You know, like Ramsay did a lot of good for Roose. Like he was able to get Moat Kalen opened and took Winterfell, burned Winterfell down and all sorts of things like that. Um, and he thinks it's all, it may be very chaotic and weird, but it might play into Roose's hands in the sense that he's creating all of this chaos and he's above it all with some sort of like master plan to it. Um, but it does seem really weird that he's creating this conflict between Ramsay and the Freys, considering it's his trueborn son. This is like a son that he can actually care about. Um, and so this is why the bolt-on theory comes around. They're like, well, if Roose doesn't care about his family, he only cares about himself, and so he's actually like a vampire and he doesn't plan on dying, or something like that. So I think that's a bit off. I think that maybe just Roose is not that smart, and he's just he thinks that Ramsay is useful to him now, and that he really wants Fat Walda and his baby to inherit the North, and that eventually he's going to dispose of Ramsay, um, and that all of these things like legitimizing him and things like that are just a he's just playing. He's just playing. He's not really doing anything. Mm. So I mean, that might be it. You know, it's probably that George just didn't think it through. Um,
Probably.
yeah. So you're back. What was this news?
It's a couple of things. Basically, HBO had an earnings call, and
Mm,
essentially, we are getting the news that Duncan Egg will start filming in June, and that
yes,
House
I
of the
heard about
Dragon
this.
may also premiere in June.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I didn't understand why people. So this seemed to contradict other news we've heard. Like the other news is that there was some major reshoots, which are normal, you
Yeah,
know,
for big battles.
for big battles. So that there's some norm, but still having big reshoots like that does mean that things take time, and that we're still kind of like thinking about uh, a July or August premiere date. This news that all of a sudden it's going to come as early as June is pretty shocking to me.
So I spoke to resident crazy person, Dragon Demands, who, by the
Yeah.
way, I'm not just saying this because I'm friendly with the guy, and you've also repeated this as well.
Mm.
For those of you guys who want to stay up to date with actual, credible, good, decent House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones news, everything surrounding the universe, Dragon Demands is literally the YouTuber to go to for that
He
stuff.
yeah, he's the real he's the yeah he does he does all the research. He knows everything. He has all the spy photos. He's got a few sources on the inside. He's this is it's
He's not putting out misinformation like Kathleen Kennedy's going to be fired tomorrow. Like, no, he's the
no.
real guy.
No.
I asked him privately, like, so what's going on with this? And he said to me, I'm reading what he said to me. He goes, David Zaslav gave an intentionally vague earnings call, which upset people in the whole thing. But he
Mm.
broadly said that House of the Dragon will return next quarter, which usually means May to June. However, we suspect he was using exact words. Last weekend of June is still technically June. So we may get it. I'm assuming he wants to like not have
Yeah.
it coincide with the basketball finals. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about that. So
Oh,
uh,
generally speaking, you don't premiere stuff against the basketball finals, which are end of May, beginning of June.
right. So we're probably looking at something like very end of June because June 30th is a Sunday. So we're probably looking at the very beginning of July around that time towards August, which is perfectly fine with me. But the one issue that we're gonna have, you and me, is that uh, I'm pretty sure The Boys will also be premiering in June. The Boys is coming back,
Hmm.
and it's an election season for The Boys, and of course they're gonna very, very they just, they're really gonna parrot a lot of the what's really happening, and they're gonna call it coincidence, which I really think it is a coincidence. All the stuff that they're parroting is like just happening at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, but yeah, it's But no,
The
House of the
the the,
Dragon may be
the
coming
reason the
back.
reason the reason uh why he mentioned last weekend of June. So if the it's possible that the NBA finals could go as late as June 23rd if there's 7 games to the final game. So when he's saying last week of June is technically June, he's saying that the game 7 would have to happen, then they'd premiere it. But you don't put it up against the um the NBA finals.
Pretty
Um,
much, and then not House of the Dragon. Duncan Egg is going to start filming in June with a. Apparently, we might get it late 2025, which yikes! I was kind of hoping somewhat in the
oh, that
middle
it
of
was going to be summer
2025.
2025.
No, late 2025.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying you were hoping for summer
Yeah, summer of
2025.
2025. Yeah, something like that. But this is the Star Wars method, you know.
Mm,
Mando is out of season, therefore they premiere another Star Wars show until Mando can
right,
come back
right.
next year. It's a very good strategy. Two things about that. Number one, late 2025. God damn, that's gonna be so fucking far off.
Yeah.
Because I really want to see Dunkin' Egg, but okay, fine. So, all right, Dunkin' Egg, late 2025, fine. And then 2026, I guess House of the Dragon season 3. I'm assuming they're gonna take a year off.
Mm,
Okay,
mm, mm,
fine.
mm.
But my other problem with this is this what HBO is going to be now? The Game of Thrones channel?
I mean, it seems to be. Um,
Mm.
well, I mean, or it's going to be what HBO is. So like, so Max is no longer just HBO, right? So Max probably has some other shows that are going to be um, considered part of its group, but like um, I'm trying to think biggest shows on Max besides. I mean, let's see. See, they just keep putting. I mean, I guess they put 30 best shows on Max. See, I mean, it might be what the HBO brand is becoming versus because Max has more of it. But oh my God, they're done. They're doing. There's another Walking Dead series, The Ones Who Live. What?
AMC is just basically that, and whatever.
Oh my God, I just like. Oh my God, can I mean the. Uh, anyway, the. But I mean, you can turn on Disney, right? And you can be like, well, what is like the Star Wars brand? Well, the Star Wars brand on Disney Plus is essentially Mando, right?
It's Mando. It's Bad Batch, which is ending. It's
Yeah.
whatever else is coming
Ahsoka,
out.
right?
Ahsoka, which I think is
Obi-Wan.
picked up for season two.
We'll
We might
see.
get an Obi-Wan season two. God, I fucking hope not. Acolyte is coming out this year. I think there's only two Star Wars projects this year: Bad Batch, which is now, and then
Hmm.
Acolyte. So yeah. So okay,
But yeah,
House
but
of the Dragon.
they might say like one Game of Thrones show a year is not so bad though. Cuz you remember it's back in the day it was Game of Thrones every year.
Sure.
And then they couldn't keep that pace, right? So in a sense they're just going back to one show a year. It's just alternating House of the Dragon, Dunk and Egg.
Game of Thrones shoots on location and it's costly. So
Mm.
my problem with Game of Thrones with HBO being the Game of Thrones channel is I like HBO because they usually have unique, awesome shows like Raised by Wolves. What the fuck was that? That was great. Of course, it went down the shitter, but whatever. Spending so much money on all these Game of Thrones spin-offs is awesome for us as content creators, but as fans of good TV, what is sacrificed in the pursuit of like making this the Game of Thrones channel? You see what I'm saying?
I mean, Raised by Wolves was ultra weird because it wasn't even HBO. It was HBO Max exclusive. Like it wasn't even like
Whatever, but it was
on
still on
it
HBO.
wasn't even on like the regular HBO like cable channel. It's fucking weird. Anyway, but yes.
But like, what are we sacrificing? Because, like, I want to see other cool shows as well, some unique shows that we haven't seen
Mm,
before.
mm, mm, mm.
And will HBO have enough budget for other stuff?
Uh, who
Mm.
knows? Who knows? I don't know. Did you
So
already
we're
watch?
getting
Did
House
you?
of the
By the way, did
Dragon.
you already watch Avatar?
Oh, I did. I'll have Ness come on because man carrying things had the perfect video for
Oh,
Avatar.
I saw it. I saw the men carrying things thing. Yeah.
That's literally me and Ness. Like I thought it was whatever, and Ness is like, "This is the worst piece of shit ever." So I'll have him
Right.
come on later.
If you've seen the cartoon, yeah, then yeah.
hmm
Uh,
Um.
yeah.
So House of the Dragon this year, Dunk and Egg next year, and what? The Aegon movie 2026?
I mean, I don't know if the Aegon thing's happening, but we'll see. That's too far
Well,
off.
they got the guy who wrote the who helped write the Batman Robert Pattinson film. And I found
Yeah,
this
yeah.
really fucking funny. I really also wanted to talk to you about this one
Hmm.
interview that Dave and Dan did. Do you want to knock this one super chat out and then we'll get back to it?
Sure, sure. Also, you're this next super chat from you can probably speak to more than me. Um, who what is sending the Targs Dragon Dreams? If time traveling Bran, I thought he couldn't change much before his conception, but he dreams, but the dreams go before the doom. Um, yeah, this is a major problem. Now, I personally theorize that Bran is only time is like Quantum Leap. He's only time traveling within his own lifetime, and the reason I believe this is because if he does. if he time travels before that, he's going to screw up his own conception. And George R. Martin thinks about this kind of stuff. Like he's actually really anal about the time travel stuff. So, or at least in his previous writings on time travel, he has been pretty anal. So the question is, so who, if not time traveling Bran, who? Um, and clearly, like Bloodraven, it can't be Bloodraven because Bloodraven, is not even in the werewood net until post Dunk and Egg kind of stuff, and we know that like Daron was getting dreams. Um, we know that at least Daenerys the Dreamer was getting dreams. We know that this stuff is going on. So I imagine that my best guess is that there is a previous Green Seer before Bloodraven, who was trying to do the same thing, that were trying to fight the others or whatever, more focused on whatever we think that Bloodraven is focused on. I'm not sure, trying to get dragons to come back to fight the others or something. And that there was a previous person trying to do the same thing, failed. Previous person tried to do the same thing, failed. That kind of stuff, So that's the best guess I have, but I don't necessarily think it's a time traveling Bran, just because he'd screw up his own conception, you know. Can we get an AI generated Roy Dotrice voice reading your fanfic? What the fuck was HBO thinking, not using Bran's character in the show to expand the universe after season 8? A quantum leap of ice and fire. So this is what we're talking about with like a time traveling within his own lifetime, having a weekly experience. But it's just kind of weird. It's weird in the show that they just dropped time travel as a concept. Unless you count like, why do you think I came all of this way? Like that's somehow hinting that time traveling Bran planned the whole thing. Line. But Carmine, you have specifically dabbled in Roy Dotrice AI, have you not?
Maybe, I don't know, psycha, maybe. No. So, what this person is saying, if Preston, first and foremost, Preston is persona non grata in a lot of the Ice and Fire fandom, in the community. You know that for a fact. I've seen you. You also know that people try to make you the villain in their origin story. I don't know why. You're like the nicest guy. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not gonna go into it.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about. Don't do that. You know
I know what I'm
exactly
talking about. I
like.
mean, like I say, like the weird like the weird person that was like Preston went around like going up to people and being like, "Hi, I'm Preston Jacobs." Like people were supposed to be impressed by that. It's like that's called introducing yourself. Like,
I'm not just talking about that
that's
crazy
what
woman.
regular people do.
I'm not talking about that crazy woman. I'm talking about like there's a whole host of other people. I won't get into it, but like what I'm trying to say is you're persona non grata in a lot of these communities, a lot of these subreddits and Facebook groups. You'd be even more so if you used Roy Dotrice's voice and likeness without his family's permission. So can you do it? Yes. Will you do it? Out of respect, I think you probably should not. Not that you would.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be like, have to be somebody else doing it without me knowing about it. but yeah, no, Carmine has tried to master AI. He's tried to master George's voice. He's tried to master my voice. He's tried to master.
Let me give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And when Mr. Ness comes on, because Ness is my AI guy, so Ness is the one that's been dabbling it the most.
But you say it actually takes a fair bit of time for Ness to get, say, a single paragraph correct, or even like
he'll have to tell you more.
Because it's not just like it's not just about like feeding text into something. Like you have to like fix stuff along the way, and make it sound right.
Yeah, you do have to get a lot of the like the way the person talks in there. It's a whole fucking thing.
Yeah,
But for the most part, we did get George down very nicely. We did get Roy Detree down very nicely. Just to play with it, just to fuck around with it. There is no published anything anywhere, in case anybody's wondering. But it's one of those things where you got to be very careful because people do have a problem with that.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
mm,
Yeah, I mean, even I haven't used any AI generated thumbnails or things like that, but even like doing that using an AI generated thumbnail, like a lot of people get upset about that kind of stuff, or using AI generated art, which is my only problem with the AI stuff right now is that it has made YouTube kind of annoying for me. Like I think a lot of AI art is ugly, and so now when like I see thumbnails go by and I'm just like, ugh, that's AI, that's AI, that's AI. Like I can tell, I mean, when AI gets better and the uncanny valley of it goes away, I probably won't mind as much. But like right now, there's an uncanny valley aspect to AI and AI thumbnails, and I think they look horrible. And I just don't aesthetically like what AI is doing right now. I also hate clicking on a video and hearing a voice that I know is AI or um, automated, because it's just like there's just no intonation or life to it. They're just like, did you know that in A Song of Ice and Fire? And you're like, oh god, like,
actually, so this is the thing that I was showing you. So, do you mind if I tell the audience about the thing I tried getting you as
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
10th anniversary type of thing, as like a whole thing for you?
Uh-huh.
So I was trying. So Preston's first ever video ever is the pink letter video, and if you go back and you watch that video, it sounds very bad. Your mic was trash.
Yeah,
You don't know how to speak into your fucking mic. Yada yada. You can usually tell. So what I planned on doing was using AI to grab how you talk and then using AI again to grab a most recent updated voice that you have. Because 10 years ago, you sounded much different than you do now. How old were you
sure.
10 years ago? 34, 35?
I was like 14.
Fuck, stop it. You sounded much younger 10 years ago, clearly. So
Sure.
it is possible to use AI to take how you sound now and to take how you were reading the script back then to make it a more updated version of that old video. Also, let me make this very clear to people who are very anti AI. If you're a content creator and you're anti AI, you're a dumb fuck. And let me tell you why. I understand that you are against the whole art thing, and that's fine. But eventually, you are going to have to use AI to do subtitles. For example, you ever watch a TikTok or a short and there's subtitles in the middle of the fucking screen?
Hmm.
99% of the time, that person is not manually putting that in. That is AI.
Sure. Sure. I
And
mean,
my God, is that useful?
sure. I mean, when I close caption my videos or something, like I understand that YouTube is using AI to, like,
Hmm.
figure things out and place things right. It's fine. But there is just I'm just talking, and again, like I haven't even like considered the moral implications of it. I'm talking like currently, I think AI looks ugly. That's my problem with it, not
What I'm
anything
telling you
else.
is that there are multiple forms of AI besides like the art stuff and the voice stuff. There's auto generated
Yeah,
subtitles AI. There's AI eventually will be coming
right.
to
I
give
I
you
understand. I don't want to be
timestamps
a
on your
lut. I'm
videos.
not. I'm not. I'm not, I don't want to be a luddite here, but like I'm just saying that currently AI voice stuff doesn't sound great, and currently AI art doesn't look great. I understand that, like, in a year, in 5 years, or whatever, we're gonna live in a very different world. I'm just saying right now, it kind of. This is like the difference between like when 3D video games like first came out. I thought they looked horrible. Like I didn't like the first Tomb Raider, because I was just like this. It's confused. Like nothing looked right. But when I look at Elden Ring now, I'm like, oh fuck, that's beautiful, right? Like
Yeah.
right, like it might just be like I'm an old man, but I just don't think it looks good. Like AI art just looks fucking crap right now.
Yeah,
But
once again, art and voice, sure, but in terms of like auto-generating subtitles, in terms of like
yeah.
timestamping videos, remember that
Oh
AI
yeah, yeah.
tool I
Oh
showed
yeah,
you that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
timestamp shit?
Yeah,
Like stuff like that is what I want to start using, and like yeah. So because
sure.
a lot of people complain that you don't timestamp your live streams anymore. Using that like AI thing will allow you to automatically input the video in, and then the AI will timestamp every time you answer a new question.
Yeah, yeah. Um, thoughts on Starship Troopers? Um, Starship Troopers, the Starship Troopers, the movie, I think is an incredible movie. Starship Troopers, and what I love about it is that it what I love about it is that it is a an insult to Starship Troopers the book, which is wonderful. Um, for those that don't know, Starship Troopers, the original book, the original novel, uh, is kind of a right wing um, kind of story, and it takes place in a world where like unironically like the writer thinks that like only people that serve in the military should become citizens and should be allowed to vote and things like this and it's like they're fighting the bugs who are communal as like a symbol of them like fighting communism and things like this. Like this is like um the this is really like this was like the plot of it. Now, when they made the movie, like they're like, "Oh my god, this is some freaking crap." So let's then make the protagonists of the movie like just fascists and
Not just fascists, sexy fascists.
oh yeah, sexy fascists. It was incredible. And I love also the fact that when they marketed Starship Troopers, and I remember when it came out, they marketed like a straight up action romp. You know, like they used Blur song number 2, and they went woohoo, and they just showed like ships blowing up and everything, and they're like Starship Troopers, you know. And so you think like anybody who saw that trailer that was like, I want to go see some ships blowing up, and then gets this like this satire political commentary movie thrown at them, like bravo, bravo, Starship Troopers. Like everything about the creation of the movie, I love it. I love it. It's such a good movie. It is so well acted in the sense that it's so poorly acted. It's so perfect. It's like it's so great. I cannot say enough good things about um what a what a shockingly on the nose um satire it is. Um Now they then went on and did a bunch of sequels. Oh my gosh, that like without the satire, like they're just like missing the point of Starship Troopers, just trying to get the make money off of it by like using the name Starship Troopers. It was yeah, pretty bad. I've seen the second and third Starship Troopers movies. They're horrible, but
Third one was actually I don't know, it kind of brought back the satire a little bit.
yeah, a
I
little
did like the
bit.
song.
Yeah, but like the second one, I don't know. It's like they
Sucked.
filmed that in a
Stupid.
weekend or something. I was just
Hmm.
like weird. Yeah, but what a fucking great movie. What a great movie. I'm just I can't believe it got made. I can't believe it exists. But you know, that's what's that's you know. But that's the Paul Verhoeven movie. You know, um, the fact that he had like a great stretch, right? Because like
A 10-year
within
stretch, yeah.
within I want to say just a few years he got oh yeah within a few years he
I
did
got you because I was
RoboCop,
actually looking at the other day.
Total
Uh,
Recall,
mm-hmm.
Basic Instinct, and
Showgirls.
then he did Showgirls. Oh well,
And then
but
Starship. No,
then
so
Starship
for so
Troopers.
from 87 to 97, that 10-year stretch, that man was on
On
top of the
fire. Yeah.
fucking world. RoboCop, Total Recall. He ruled the late 80s and 90s with
Oh
like the
yeah.
blood
Yeah.
splatter. He was Tarantino before Tarantino.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But he did it in such a like a shocking way. I mean, um that was just like everything about it was just like made you uncomfortable. And even looking back, like, because I was a kid when these movies came out and I didn't really understand them, like Total Recall. Like there's a scene where they see all this terrorism and war happening on Mars, and then in the next scene he sits down with his wife and he's like, "Let's do it. Let's move to Mars." And you're like, What is wrong with you?" And like as a kid, I just totally didn't get how ridiculous that was and how he can make such a ridiculous movies, like over the top ridiculous movies. I've seen Hollow Man. That was a fairly straight movie, um, though there's certainly some weird parts of it. But man, that 10 years though, RoboCop, the RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Starship Troopers, like man, that was his fucking decade. What a decade. Um, Favorite Ken Burns doc? I think I've only seen the Civil War, honestly. I know he's done like 500 documentaries, but I think I've only seen Civil War. So I'm sorry that I can't comment on it. I haven't seen the Beatles documentary. Most of what I know about the Beatles is actually from from a few books that I read, um, on the life of John Lennon. But um, so I um, haven't seen many documentaries on him. Oh my gosh, so many comments tonight. I'm so fucking far behind. Preston, I emailed you a theory paper inspired by one of your over analyzing House and the Dragon theories. Thought you might get a kick out of it as thanks for doing all that you do with the channel. Okay, thank you. I'll have to check it out. Um, let me see. Let me see if I. Always have to. Ah, here it is. Okay. Um, I knew this might be brain rot, but is there a prologue for A Storm of Swords? Yeah, it's Chet. Good old Chet. Um, we need a Mord point of view. We should. I mean, Mord. Did we mention Mord in the? Did he get a shout out in the Elaine fan fiction chapter? I may have to check that. My big regret. My big regret on Elaine is actually not having mentioned Willis Woad. Man, I mean, granted I can go back. We can go back and change certain things, but like, I wish I would have mentioned Willis Woad. Um, where did I get Mord? I didn't. I don't think I mentioned. I don't think Mord gets mentioned. Maybe I have to capitalize it. Nope. I guess I thought he would at least be like at the like in the final scene where like people are gathered around. I thought maybe I would have put Mord in, but I guess not. Oh well. Oh well. Mord and Willis Woad. They're definitely gonna get a mention in Elaine 3. Cannot. Um. So can we book the next Sunday as the pasta stream? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Scalia died in 2016. I think you meant Alito. I do. Yes, I did, because they're the same man. One reincarnated as the other. Um. Do you think the Voyages through the Thousand Islands is based on the HMS Erebus and Terror through the Northwest Passage? Um, I mean, certainly the name is probably him, one, like referencing the Thousand Worlds, but two, like referencing Thousand Island dressing. I mean, that's just like George R. Martin uh, um, kind of humor that he'd be like, oh, Thousand Islands, you know. But like the HMS Erebus, um, huh? I mean, I've never heard anything about it. I mean, obviously, like George R. Martin did, you know, he's a big European history guy. Um, and you know, it's always possible that he read about the stuff, but I would have to go back and read the entry on the Thousand Islands and that. Now, keep in mind that like George on that specific part of the world of Ice and Fire, George didn't have too much input. Like he actually, if there's one section of Ice and Fire of World of Ice and Fire that's most Elio and Linda, it's the Essos section. So I don't know how much he wrote on it anyway. Do you think George has a harder time saying goodbye to his characters now that he has lost so many IRL friends? His Dark Days posting got me thinking. Yeah, I mean, it's um he let I'm trying to think like an analogy in my head about things. Like so I spent a lot of time when I moved back from Taiwan to to the US, like a lot of time recently like organizing our stuff and like trying to throw stuff out and stuff like that. And my wife doesn't ever throw anything out. She's um and but at the same time like I get overwhelmed by having all these little items around, and I, you know, because it takes time to essentially like curate the items in your life. And I'm talking like just little things like you pull out some, you know, card and it's like, oh, this is like the rail pass we used when we lived in Germany. And you like sit there and you're like, oh, do I want to, you know, do I want to keep this memento or do I want to like throw it out? And you like weigh it. You're like, oh, you know, like Carmine, do you still have your college ID?
No.
No, but
Actually,
you
no,
don't.
I do, actually.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Right? There's just this like, well, it's like a memento, right? Like, are you ever going to use that thing? Do you think you'd forget college
But
without it? Like,
by
you
the way,
know, like, but
I gotta show you that. I gotta show you the college idea
right,
as a different human being.
right. But but as you start getting like old, like me, your house is now filled with these just like so many mementos from so many times, especially when like you know you travel and stuff like that. Like, and so it's exhausting to like sit there for every single item, and there's just so many thousands upon thousands of items, and to make that calculation and be like, oh, do I want to throw this out or do I want to keep it? And so a lot of times you just are just like, I am going to procrastinate that decision and leave it in a drawer, you know. And I'll come back to it later, you know. And other stuff too, like you're like, oh, am I going to use, you know, in my basement I'm like, ah, oh, I've got like my mom's spice rack, you know, and it's like, oh, will I ever use that spice rack? Probably not, but it's a perfectly good spice rack. And then you put it off, and then you come down again into the basement. And you're like, ah, that spice rack. Am I going to use that spice rack? Ah, and it's like I've honestly looked at the fucking spice rack like 50 times and made the calculation in my head. I'm just like, ah. I think it's the same thing with like a lot of these characters, like killing characters. You're like, oh, am I going to use these characters later? Like, it's just there's so much effort in making each of these decisions. Like, it's mentally exhausting. Am I ever going to use that character again? Will they have a good story? You're like, what am I going to do with them? So I think it's just that. Like, I think with a lot of the decision, the story has grown so large that there's so many little decisions to make, and it's really exhausting to make those decisions. Um, Solve any problem in the world, what would it be? I mean, I think I'd probably like try to solve, climate change, or an environmental issue would probably be the big ones that I would solve. Those are the ones that I think are the most threatening to humanity itself, um, you know, in the world. I think that's what I'd focus on. I wanted to get into environmental. I actually wanted to do when I left college. I wanted to do environmental work actually, and then it was just so sad and depressing, and I got interested in international work after that. But it was just it's but that's where I still have a bleeding heart for. How do you feel about the U.S. continuing to fuck over women with the new frozen embryos being babies BS now? What if people can't afford to continue to pay? So I was actually it's funny because I was in the car with my wife and I brought this up, and my wife was just like shaking her head. She didn't want to talk about it because she's just like, "Oh, this is exhausting." But the Alabama Supreme Court, if you are really saying like life begins at conception, then their decision was correct. Now, of course, like it's absolute lunacy. It's absolute lunacy to say life begins at conception. I believe life begins at birth, and that women should be able to have abortions all the way up until birth. That's my opinion. Um, and I can if there's one political topic I can argue and probably beat anybody on, it's probably the abortion issue. Anything else, people can probably uh, run circles around me, but um, I could defeat anyone in a discussion in an argument about abortion. Um, but the but yeah, so once you take that position that life begins at conception, that God is shooting down souls into zygotes, um, at this point, like, yeah, the next thing you know, embryos are people. So now you're like, okay, if you really had a situation where you had a room full of children, what's the next decision? Like, wouldn't you then like be trying to one force women to implant with all of their frozen embryos, right? Because you force people to take care of their kids, right? So wouldn't that be the next step, that they would have to be forcing women to implant? And what if if the woman's past the point where she can implant all of those embryos, um would you be trying to find like volunteers to implant to save these kids, right? Like, for any other kids, if it was like regular kids, I mean, we have foster parents, right? Like we try to get kids into foster homes. Like, wouldn't they try to do the same thing, right? Like, once these decisions are made, like where you start saying life begins at conception, it would logically lead to these places, right? It's pretty crazy. And yeah, the Republicans are going to pay for it. The Republicans are really going to pay for it because women are going to vote, and they have been. They have been. But this is like it just highlights just how insane the whole thing is. This when they made this decision, he was like quoting the Bible in his court. The judges were like quoting the Bible and stuff in their decisions. Straight up theocracy stuff. But oh, fun times, fun times. um Preston is far right confirmed. I'm not sure where that came from. Um, Back with vampire. Why use Jane Poole if it didn't matter? I mean, it's just a northern girl. There's the only northern girl they had. Highborn northern girl. Sansa meets Jane again. Probably not. Um, I don't think it's important. One, like just because I mean, it was her friend, but at the same time, like she doesn't think about Jane too much, which is too bad. This was her like best friend. You know, you'd think she would think about her more. But I don't know if there's an opportunity. You know, like say Jane Poole makes it to the wall, and say after that she gets sent to Essos or something. Sansa heading into the Riverlands, like would they ever even have time to meet each other? I don't think they're. I just logistically, I don't think it's it's likely. Uh, you know, though Sansa should think about Jane a little more. Um, if Roose legitimizes Ramsay, he can feign outrage when Ramsay is inevitably killed, which he could use to justify betraying the phrase later. Now keep in mind he did legitimize him, or he asked the crown to legitimize him, and they did. Um, but um, but yeah, he could use him to justify betraying the phrase. I just don't know why Roose would ever want to betray the phrase. I mean, the phrase are fighting for him. They're completely loyal to him. He's gonna have a baby with with one. So I don't think why Roose would ever want to. I can't think of any reason why Roose would want to betray the phrase. Phrase are his friends. But yeah, maybe Vampire Roose. Vampire Roose. Do you have any phobias? I weirdly hate gum. I hate gum a lot. Um, I don't know, I don't know why I hate it so much, but like,
That
it's
is
just
so fucking rant. Gum,
like,
like chewing gum.
yeah, I hate it. Yeah.
I think this person meant like something you're afraid of.
I mean, but this is like a phobia is like an irrational thing. Like you're talking about like what things I'm afraid of. Like I had an ex once ask me. She's like, "Oh, are you scared of anything? What's like your biggest fear?" And like she expected me to say something like spiders, and I was like, having a kid and then having it die. And she's like, she got really upset. She was like, that got really heavy, and I'm like, that's what I'm afraid of. So it's like I'm not really legitimately scared of gum or anything like that. I'm just talking like something irrational in my head that I think is gross is gum. I never liked the smell of it. It kind of makes my throat close up, and to different degrees. So like cinnamon gum is the worst. The pink gum, bubble gum is like the second worst, and then like minty spearmint kind of stuff. Like I can tolerate that. That's not
Which
so
one's
bad.
the worst?
Cinnamon gum. Fucking hate cinnamon gum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I like the smell of it like causes me to choke. Like I don't know. Yeah. It's just a weird thing. No, there's no logic to it. But um the I used to really hate roaches because I'd seen Creep Show and there's the roach scene in that, but like I'm over it I'm over it now. Live in Taiwan enough. I've seen enough roaches.
So for
Um
this next super chat, I have to show you something. So
mm,
you might have to share your screen if you're cool with that.
sure. What's
Hmm.
going on? Wait, did I miss something? Did I switch away
No, no, no,
from
no. This
oh
one right here that you're clicked on.
Okay. Was watching a stream on the Roman Empire, and the stream heavily used AI art, and one of the depictions of Julius Caesar looked like the actor from Rome. 100% agree with your opinion that AI art is annoying. That's really funny.
So let me show you the final boss
I
of
mean,
like
that's
the
meant. I
AI
mean,
content
first of all,
creation.
Julius Caesar. Oh wait, no, I'm confusing. The guy that played Pompey is Mance Raider, but
Hmm.
who played Julius Caesar in a Rome show? Oh no, it is Mance Raider. Mance Raider played Julius Caesar. Yeah. What were you saying, Carmine?
I want to show you the final boss of AI content creation. So share your screen and go to YouTube.
you're like you're like, yo, this is what's fucking weird, right? By the way, when you're gonna come, this is how fucking crazy whatever the world is, right? Look at that. Everything great about Starship Troopers. Are they like listening to me? Could you imagine that, right?
Go to on the search bar, type in Stellar, Stlar, Saga, Saga, Stellar Saga.
Yeah, okay. This Stellar
Look at
Sagas.
his look at his shorts. And right there, one of the Julius.
Oh.
Click that.
He looks like
That's AI. You have to listen to the voice though.
no, yeah, I know, but he looks like the not necessarily the Julius Caesar actor, but he looks like the Mark Antony actor from Rome. Yeah.
Play it so you can hear the voice. The voice is AI too.
Well,
Everything is AI
I
in
don't want
that.
to play it because of like whatever of uh getting flagged or whatever. But
I don't think
the
you'll get
Mark,
flagged for that.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. But I think it does seem like the AI took a little bit of the Mark Antony actor and put it in there into the
But
Julius
no, yeah,
Caesar.
that entire channel is completely automated, and like the voice, the pictures, and I think he does a pretty good job. But he makes every single historical figure look like a male model.
Yeah,
They all look like ridiculously good looking. That's the one issue I would say. And the skin kind of has like this waxy, glossy look to it. Didn't look
right.
it looks very fake.
Very. It looks very like Fabio romance novels. You know what I'm talking about? Map painting kind of.
Hmm.
You know, like it's weird how that art um, became so associated with like pulp novels, like this sort of like portrait, um, shiny portrait kind of thing. Like these could all be, and this is like for some reason AI art now. Oh, Fabio. Like if you were like, I created this on AI, they'd be like, yeah, that seems about right. You ever seen the Winds of Winter romance novel cover?
Show me.
This is it. The
Let me
Winds of
see this.
Winter.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
oh, I didn't know this is this thing that existed. Wow.
yeah, yeah. No, there is a original Winds of Winter, um, by Sandra Field. I've never read it, but yeah, it exists. The Winds of Winter.
Exists somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I should do a video on it, but it's ridiculous, right? um, mm, 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 mm. Old man Preston is unmasked when ranting about old movies. You know, certain movies I have strong opinions on. Okay, let's see here. Um, recommend natural natural disasters for those decisions. Like my story about the guy whose wife left him, and then the same week, he his there was a fire in his apartment complex, and his apartment got completely soaked for with water. One of the reasons I'm really like sensitive about it too is a number of years ago I had to um, downsize my mother, like clear out my childhood home and like move my mother across the country. And it was just like the decisions, like what my mother wanted to keep and like or the fits she had. And it's like it was a lot of it stuff. A lot of time it wasn't even stuff she was bringing with her. A lot of times it was like sneaking stuff into my house and like leaving it in the basement. You know, um, you know what pop, you know what kind of you'll notice has really boomed in the past like decade is one like container stores and storage facilities. Have you noticed that, Carmine, that storage facilities are popping up everywhere?
Yes. Hmm.
And the thing is, it's like people, they don't want to make these like hard decisions about what to throw away. So they like will rent a storage unit and then shove all the stuff in a storage unit so that they don't have to think about it. And then eventually they like, this is why you end up with all these abandoned storage units so that like, that they now have like reality shows about where people like buy the storage unit and go through it. It's like people's junk that they didn't want to deal with. And so they put it in a, like no one wants to throw it away. Um, because you know every time you do throw it away, it's like all of a sudden you need it that next week. You know. um, ridiculous hypothetical. If George died and his wife reached out to you to finish the series, would you do it? I honestly don't believe another author would sound more George than you and the team. Yeah, I would. I would absolutely, but you know, I don't think that. I don't think that's would happen. Um, I think that um, you know they would find some big name author or something to pass things off of. I mean, I do kind of I do agree that our system and method of trying to sound like George is pretty unique. I don't think anybody else can. I don't think anybody besides our team can really do it. Um, uh, and catch all of like the little intricacies at the same time. Like it's kind of a unique situation, you know, that we have who we have and um, can produce what we're producing. So it's but yeah, obviously if she reached out, but I don't. That's never ever gonna happen. Ever gonna happen. Um, I could beat anyone when it comes to abortions. A Preston abortion master Jacobs. Yes. You ever know that Carmine? Did you hear that about the line that was cut in Fight Club?
Which one?
So there was a line that was in the original Fight Club script that they felt was too offensive, and they ended up replacing it with one that was probably much more offensive. So there's oh yeah, so there's a scene where the Harry Potter woman and Brad Pitt like finish having sex, and she lies back, and originally the line was, "I want to have your abortion," and
Hmm.
yeah, so when they had the script, they're like, "Oh, can you replace this line?" And they're like, "Okay, I'll replace it, but just one time." And he replaced it with the line, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school, which is much, much more offensive. I mean, you know the line I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. First off, both lines fit very well with who that woman plays and like the type of
Mm-hmm.
character she
Yeah,
plays. But
absolutely.
Helen
Absolutely.
Bonham Carter, I think I'm saying her name right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's ambiguous whether it actually happened to her or if she's just trying to get a rise, out of the
Hmm.
person by saying something fucked up, like you don't know. She's a fucking great character. Great character. Um, um, drove on the far right equals being far right. Uh, uh, I don't know. I don't know. Um, haven't read the first book in a while, but I thought Sansa and Jane's relationship didn't seem that strong. They spend all their time together due to just happenstance. Someone they just talk at. It's hard to say. I mean, Sansa doesn't really. Sansa doesn't get a point of view until she makes it to King's Landing. Um, and Jane Poole is part of it. They definitely enjoy spending time together. I mean, they're friends. But I don't think it even matters. Like, if you're a 12, 13-year-old girl and there's only one other 12, 13-year-old girl in your life, like, the person's gonna be like, it doesn't, like, I understand it's a convenience, but I mean, all of our relationships are relationships of convenience to some degree. But like, um, but yeah, it's just uh, of course you're gonna like a real girl would be um would be get attached. Um, Sansa reuniting with Jane Poole should be what turns Sansa against Littlefinger. Or this brings up a good point. Not necessarily them being reunited, but her finding out somehow that it was Jane Poole, of what Littlefinger did to Jane Poole. Because remember, like, Jane Poole was sold into sex slavery first in King's Landing, then brought all the way north and married to Ramsay, who abused her. Um, what Littlefinger did to Jane Poole is is outrageously evil, and if Sansa ever knew about that, like, that would be the one thing that could really. I mean, granted, there's the whole, like, betraying her father and having her father executed, being kind of probably in on perhaps probably being in on having Ned executed. There's that. But if she ever found out what he did to Jane Poole, ugh, 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 man. Who's your favorite character again, Carmine? Oh man. You should do an April Fool's fanfic chapter called Rybach for the true PJ fans. Yeah, yeah. People always give me these April Fool's ideas, and I'm always like, man, that's so much work. That's so much work. Like, every April Fool's, it'll be like 2 days before April Fool's Day. My wife will be like, you should do an April Fool's like video on, and then she'll mention some, like, I don't know, like, weird thing about Harry Potter or something, or some ridiculously, like, strange funny thing, and it's like, that's a great idea. I have 2 days. There's no way I'm putting together a video that long, and you know, oh, um, Winds of Winter full review. I could do the Winds of Winter full review and do a line by line analysis of the Winds of Winter. It's released. I have to get a copy of. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty easy to get a copy of the Winds of Winter, but um, Is there a preview? Oh, there's a PDF of it, I think. No, that's not it. No, no. I've got to get. Yeah, here it is. They have a few snippets, but huh. Let me see. I see one line. This was not by chance and decided. Am I gonna find that? No. Hmm. Hmm. Have to get a copy. Have to get a copy. Um. All right. Oh, I missed Mira's super chat. Where is Mira? Here we go. Is there another one? I think I did this one. Oh,
Nope, you got it. Rob is mistaken.
yeah, maybe something else. Um. All right. Where am I?
You've actually reached the end.
Oh man, incredible. Oh, I was so behind, and I was like, "Where am I?" And then I was like, "Oh, I made it! I made it!" Oh, here we go. Question for Mrs. Jacobs. When dating, was hubby's YouTube thing a perk or potential deal breaker? Um, well, a few things. My wife has not taken my name, but nonetheless, um, when we were dating, I had just started the. It had been around the time when I just started the channel. I'm trying to think, or maybe I had it going for a little while. Um, I'm trying to remember. No, I had the channel going when I was in Egypt, and I didn't meet her until I came back from Egypt. So yeah, I guess it had been going for a bit, and I didn't tell her for a long time. No, that I had this like thing going on. No, she like we dated for a while before I was like, oh yeah, I have a YouTube channel. Which was funny because she was pretty savvy at searching for things online, and finding everything about me before um, you know she's very good at online stalking, and so she like figured out she had figured out my like usernames from different things and cross-referenced them, and then like found my OK Cupid profile and things like that. Um, and I think she'd found that I'd written some articles for Cracked, um, and stuff like that. Yeah. Um, but his wife not taking his name is on par. Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing about it is that like it can be the only thing that's kind of funny is that when you're dealing with like kids and stuff and like picking people up at school and people sending you cards and stuff where they're like you can't really say the Jacobs family anymore like when we don't not everybody has like the same name. But whatever, it's all it's all fine. It's not very important to me. um Plus like uh uh I don't know, like it doesn't really matter because my kids still have my last name, so it doesn't matter. So, I mean, Carmine, do you care if your future wife takes your name or not?
That's a conversation. It's one of those things where we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it just doesn't matter. Um, I don't, you know, I'm surprised. I mean, I live in an environment or among people where yeah, no one cares in Washington D.C. So it just be like to run into people that where it did matter and people did care about that. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't know. Like I would just wouldn't. I wouldn't understand it if you come from like a. Um, but I'll get to this in a second. Hold on. In American culture, how does double-barreled last names work? Um, in America, we have uh, there's no standard on it. So like you can you can if you want, and I've seen some people get married and then change their last names to be hyphenated together or unhyphenated, like just have two names together. And I've had like they're the kids sometimes get both names as a single last name or a hyphen one name hyphenated, and it's just your choice, you know. And so it gets very confusing because you can't eventually like two generations down, you know you can't do it, you know. So like no one's gonna have four hyphenated like last names, but we're in this generation of like a lot of kids having like hyphenated two hyphenated surnames in America. There's no standard; you can just kind of do whatever you want. Um, but it's you know I understand like the entire like Latin America idea of like you know having 55 last names, you know, but yeah, there's just you know we're all just making it up as we go along um, in America. Um, Reanimated Ned's bones and Lady Stoneheart join forces for revenge against Littlefinger. Were they like I understand in the show it was just skeletons, but was it just skeletons coming out of the snow in A Dance with Dragons when they fought Bran? One of the things that's weird is obviously like with regards to a skeleton, there's actually nothing to keep bones together. I mean, obviously, like any dead body getting reanimated is stupid. Like, how does the thing stand? Like, there's no like like your muscle masses and your tendons, and how is this all keeping together? But it becomes very apparent, like super apparent, when it's like bones, because there's no connective tissue to bones. Like once you're just bones. Um, so um I want to say, yeah, I mean, I think there were just actually whites coming out of the ground. I mean, bodies, at least in Brand 2 when they're attacking him. But it's this idea that like could Ned's bones animate into an actual like skeleton, like Jason and the Argonauts style. Um, y- y- weirdly, that Jason and the Argonauts like scene is the is like the most famous, is so famous, and it's like inspired a generation of people. This is a movie from the 60s, Jason and the Argonauts, and they had these like you know skeleton warriors, and this became kind of like the standard after that. I mean, granted, you know, Jason does really fight skeletons in his in his story, but um really changing the legal documentation sounds annoying. You know, it all depends on like state by state. There's actually still some sexism on the um and this will bring up with Smitty too. Take my wife's last name. it depends on what state you live in, because there's actually still some sexist laws on the books, where if you're a woman, you can easily and cheaply like change your name automatically when you get married. But it's harder for, depending on the state, it's harder for men. So sometimes you have to like pay the full like I'm changing my name fee, which can be like $1,000 versus like $10, you know. But it depends on the state, because you could definitely sue like as a sexist thing. Um, oh, as I live in Japan, I'd prefer my wife to keep her name. Way too many problems if she switched. Yeah, it is kind of weird. You know, a buddy of mine is a he's Taiwanese American, and he married a British woman, and she took his last name. But it's just kind of funny, right? Because she's not, she's not Chinese, she's not Taiwanese, but she's got the last name. Um, yeah, it would be. It's just kind of there's some aspects to that. I remember years ago there was an issue where an Asian American guy wanted to change his name to Harley Davidson because he really liked the motorcycles, and I think the judge had told him like he couldn't do it because he wasn't of like the right background to have the surname Davidson or something strange. Kind of weird. I don't think you can get away with that today, but I think it was like this was like in the 90s. Um, but yeah, it's I mean, Carmine, I can't believe you. I think you actually care about the last name thing.
It really depends. It really depends. It really depends on the person's last name. A while ago, I was
Hmm.
talking to this one woman whose last name was Campbell. Um, I wouldn't take that.
Yeah. Um, I knew a I knew some people with some like I knew a girl who had this really cool last name, and but she just didn't. She hated her dad, so the minute she got married, even she was like taking my husband's name. Like, good, it's gone. Um, uh, uh, but that sort of stuff is in there. There's also just like who's got the better sounding last name. Like some people have like you know nice sounding names. Um, Preston, can we get past work thousand worlds? Oh, can past work thousand worlds tell us anything about the mysterious race of hairy men that once lived in Essos? Fantasy race or real parallel? Um, I'm trying to remember. I mean, when you say like obviously hairy men, I think the first thing we go to is like um, the Jane She from "And Seven Times Never Kill Man." But I wonder if I'm trying to think if let me read about here. The hairy men or hairy men were ancient people in Essos. They're tales of hairy men, a race of savage and shaggy warriors who rode into battle on unicorns, established on the central grasslands of Essos, stretching between the forest of Qohor and the Bone Mountains. These people were larger in size than the Ibonese, who may have descended from them. Um, Hujor Amai, the mystic hero king of the ancestor of Samori, wore about his shoulders a great cloak made of the pelt of the king of the hairy men. According to according to the legend, the original inhabitants of what would become as Norvos were driven away by an onslaught of hairy men. The hairy men are remembered by Pentashi histories as having settled in western Essos. Um, well, I mean, I think first, like I think it's supposed to be Neanderthals. Would be my first guess on like what the joke is being made about these. Is that in prehistoric times there were Homo sapien and Homo sapien Neanderthal like battled or perhaps battled and one drove to the other to extinction. That was the old theory. I think now people think that we Homo sapien and Homo sapien Neanderthal like intermarried and just they disappeared because they just had children together. Um, I think the hairy men are probably just supposed to be Neanderthals. But if you went with Thousand Worlds, you could maybe talk about the Jane sheep. But in Seven Times Never Kill Man, you have these like savage, um, you know, ape creatures who then become more civilized when they're around these pyramids, and then you take the pyramids away, they become kind of a savage again. Um, and it's this idea that the there's a lot of things being said. One about like George R. R. Martin saying that religion has a perhaps had a role in civilizing man, but or is it like they're being controlled like a hive mind and that kind of idea. But in this general sense, you're just supposed to kind of understand that like George believes that yes, men were savage in the past, and then um, religion played a role in civilizing man, and then at some point, man moves beyond needing religion, and that's generally George R. R. Martin's beliefs that he writes about in Thousand Worlds and such. That he thinks that religion played a very important role in humanity historically, and then he thinks that we've moved beyond it. But he fully accepts that we were like savages before our religious days, our religious civilization days. And that's just kind of what the hairy men are. He believes, they're Neanderthals, they're cavemen, they're Jane Shi. That's kind of the whole idea. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's anything beyond that. Um, if Wins gets released, how quickly do you think I'll read it? I mean, I read it the first day and read it. I'd probably just read it the first day, like cover to cover, and not stop. Probably just go straight. I don't think. I mean, wouldn't you do the same, Carmine?
I'd like to take my time with it, but unfortunately, because of what we do, we would have to get through it. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, unfortunately, like I would like to take my time, go through every chapter, reread the same chapter, make a video on it, and then go on to the next one and next one and next one, get like, my reactions on it, and like, kind of like an episode of House of Dragon or Game of Thrones.
yeah, yeah. Um, why does the betrothal letter Quentin shows to Danny align so well with Danny's Red Door memories if her memories are wrong? I think she thinks they align. I don't necessarily think they align that well. Um, so it's what we know about the letter, and we never actually like see the text ourselves. But what we know is that it's signed by the Sea Lord of Bravos and Oberyn, and she makes a comment that she says Danny unrolled the parchment and examined it again. Bravos. This was done in Bravos while we were living. Um, oh, okay. This is the whole. He says Dario says three liars after hearing that it's signed by Oberyn, um, Willem Derry, and the Sea Lord of Bravos. And then Danny unrolls the parchment and examines it again. Bravos. This was done in Bravos while we were living at the house of the Red Door. Why did that make her feel so strange? So we're not really sure, like, was there something on the document that said that it was signed in Bravos? We don't know. Or is she just seeing Sea Lord of Bravos? Or, is she jumping to the conclusion that it was done in Bravos? But even if it were done in Bravos, like, you know, what beyond that is there? Um, for some reason she believes the House of the Red Door is in Bravos, but and we have the Sea Lord of Bravos, and maybe we're not sure because we don't see the document ourselves, but maybe it was signed in Bravos. We're not sure, but that's about it. Um, Prince Oberyn signed for Dorne with the Sea Lord of Bravos as witness. Oh no, he actually does say made in. Oh, well, she says it twice. It's a secret pact made in Bravos when I was a little girl. It's probably strong enough that there's something on the document that says that it was done in Bravos. But I don't know why that would be on the document. I mean, maybe it's part of the letterhead, like or something, or there, Um, but I don't know, I'm trying to think if like does it align that well? Or obviously even if let's say it does align well, I mean it only like needs it so Willem Derry would continue the lie, or like at some point Danny does get this lie in her head that she was she was in Bravos, and so that was told to her either by Viserys or by Willem Derry. Um, she thinks that Viserys knows nothing of the pact, but Willem Derry would. But he would. She would. Would Willem Derry tell her? Would Willem Derry tell Viserys? I don't know if there's like much alignment, but there is something to do with just why is it Bravos? Um, I wouldn't go so far to say it aligns so well. It aligns so much so that it just has Bravos as the connection. Um, this is very funny. Even though I never changed my name, my ex would always write my name with his last name. That's so weird. Huh. Huh. That's yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, um, some sort of. I mean, men in general like try to find manliness and like wrap their masculinity up in all sorts of random things, and that's probably sounds like one of those random things that person's masculinity is wrapped up in. Um, men are really obsessed with like anything that might make them appear more manly, and get obsessed with things that might like detract from their manliness. Oh, I can't provide for my family, I'm not a man. Oh, I can't grow a beard, I'm not a man. My penis isn't big enough, I'm not a man. My car isn't big enough, I'm not a man. Like men are really really obsessed with these really like irrelevant things. So and one of like that must have just been one of them. Like he's just like, oh, I feel emasculated because my wife didn't take my last name, and therefore I'm gonna somehow like try to retake that by writing your name with it or something. So weird. But man, um it's Bones being animated. Summer notes to stop wriggling when he cracks the marrow. Yeah, that's true that the bones do move. But I don't know if it's like there might be a small amount of flesh or tendons still on it. Ugh, is it just the bones? I know what you're talking about. That scene in the that's in Brand 3. Um, about like whether or not the bones can Um, there's still. Oh yeah. Oh, okay, okay. So the line Ross is right here. He says there was enough meat on it to fill his empty belly, and after that he was done. He cracked the arm bone for the marrow. Only then did the arm remember it was dead. So I guess the idea is that he ate all of the meat off and he stripped it, and there was nothing but a wiggling bone. And then he cracks it for the marrow, and only then did the arm remember it was dead. So I guess you're right that that Ned's bones could animate as long as the marrow is still inside. But that marrow is going to rot out like pretty quick, isn't it? I have to like how did they deal with the bones? Did they have like beetles or whatever eat all of the flesh off to get the bones? Did they burn them to get the bones? I feel like Ned Stark's bones wouldn't have marrow in them anymore. There were cultures that didn't have last names as we know it. First of all, my family is Dutch originally, and at least the obviously many ancestors, but my surname is Dutch, and the thing is you can go back in time with the Dutch, but the Dutch didn't really use last names like before for the most part. The average Joe didn't use last names before like the 1800s. Um, and so like the names that they came up with are just kind of like chosen on the stuff on the spot. Like this is why like Dutch names are like, you know, Van Dyke, like of which just means of the dike, or like you a random river you know um, in the Netherlands or whatever, or my name Jacobs, which just means son of Jacob. I mean, they're very simple names of like where you're from, and that's it. Because they essentially were just like, okay, everybody needs less names now. Okay, I'm just I'm of the dike. Okay, that was it. So it just wasn't important for him. I mean, for the cop. I mean, obviously the Dutch royalty had that set of stuff, but the average Dutch person didn't care about these last names. um, it's true. You can also marry someone with the last name, save on time, money, and paperwork. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, this must happen. I mean, it must happen with like Koreans a lot, considering there's only like four, and or like Sikhs, like Sikhs and Koreans, where there's just like everyone has the last name, you know. Because there's like two Sikh names. There's Singh and there's Gill, and like Koreans have like the last name like Lee Park. Everybody has the same last names. So you could I imagine you'd be marrying people with the last name like all the time, you know. Um, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal to a I don't know. I want to say to an American, it'd be a little weird. Like, wait, you have my last name. Are we related? Like, that would be the first thing. Like, are we related? But, if everybody has the same last names. Um, now you're not a gamer, but have you seen any Elder Ring lore vids? There is a shocking amount of stuff that is straight out of the Thousand Worlds. Yes. I actually have. I actually did a bit of research. There was a time where I was gonna do an Elden Ring video, and I'd done a bunch of research, and then I just kind of never got around to finishing it. But I did pay attention to a lot of it. Like obviously, like Elden Ring is ridiculous. Like it's ridiculous that they live in a world where there is a giant tree that houses everyone's souls after they die. Um, it is it is ridiculous. Like and I joked. I think I wrote a tweet that was like, imagine you hire George Lucas to do some backstory on your video game, and he's like, I got this great idea. It's this world with like a rebellion and they're fighting a Death Star, you'd be like, "Oh, really, George Lucas? A fucking Death Star? Really? Really? You're putting that in. You're not phoning this shit in." And the fact that like Elden Ring is straight up the exact same like setting as A Song of Ice and Fire. Like it's not even like pretending, right? Like it's just straight up like it's it's a fucking werewood. Like a fucking werewood is the goddamn center of the whole fucking plot. And it even goes beyond that with like I think there's some boss who has like Lannister like lions all over him, and then you fight a wolf woman like next, and you're like, oh my god. There's a festival city that's just like what you could say Croyane or Dying of the Light. Like there's a abandoned festival city. Like it's now, and a lot of people argue, well, the guy who created Elden Ring beyond that, like, was a big fan of George R. R. Martin, and then they had George R. R. Martin, so like you kind of have a double dose of like of referring back to Thousand Worlds, Ice and Fire stuff. It's just kind of ridiculous. um, huh. My girlfriend still has her ex's last name, and I call her by her maiden name, but it's more of a joke between us two, as no one calls her by her maiden name except me. Kind of a cute joke we have. That's interesting, though. I mean, I've heard of some people that are just like, well, they've gone by a certain name for so long, and it's too much of a pain. And sometimes like they're the other name is better, or whatever. It just sounds better. Um, I mean, for some reason, I was thinking of fucking Melrose Place. That happens in Melrose Place, where the couple gets divorced. Jane Mancini, but she like still goes by Jane Mancini even though they get divorced because like she thinks it sounds better for her company. Um, I don't know if anybody's getting my Melrose Place. Um, um, good rocks. Good rock hounding resources. Why is BIF so sexy? Huh. I'm trying to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what this. What I'm not sure what this is. Jimmy B. What is rock hounding? You'll have to explain this to me. I'm very confused by this one. Um, Dragon Demands just got back from seeing Dune Part Two, a little overstuffed and slightly underwhelmed. It's weird, right? They felt the need to that there was enough material to like break the Dune up into two movies. So the second half should be like the big battle, right? Um, at the end. So yeah, I suppose like they could just go battle, 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 keep it going. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of how the Paul the 1980s one had a really fast ending if I remember that they just kind of made that they kind of cut the final battle really quick and made it really not much there. And then you're like the film is over so fast. But this is like one big movie of that. Um, so I mean, I'm I'm happy they're at least doing that. They're planning on doing Dune Part Three in order to. I think they're going to base it on Messiah, right? So it'll um, ruin any good feelings that people had at the end of Dune Part Two. Oh, it sets up Dune Messiah, and they clearly say the war has only just begun. See, that's interesting because yeah, because obviously the Dune book and the last Dune movie very clearly have the good guys won, kind of ending. But this is like straight up like no, 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 no. We're doing Dune Messiah. Do not interpret this as a positive. Um, Example of simple theory being the best. Howland Reed immobilized Arthur Dane with a combat net. Ned then killed the helpless Dane. Yeah, that I mean that probably makes a bit of sense, especially considering that Mira Reed utilizes the net in her battles. So I mean the idea is that like she's going to fight in the same way as most um, frog eaters, and that he would be fighting in the same technique, right? With the net and trident. It was the first time I really thought about it as like the stupid Roman gladiator fights, where like one guy gets sword and shield and the other guy gets net and trident. It's like, oh fuck. How did I get stuck with net and trident? But I mean her spear fit. Yeah, but she has her three-pronged frog spear and her net. No, I think that completely makes sense that he gets caught in a net and then Ned kills him. I think it's very simple and yeah, probably a bit boring and probably correct in that sense.
Actually, probably the nicest simple theory I like so far. It's just
Yeah.
it doesn't like turn the world upside down. Very believable.
um, please spoil the next Aaron or Sam chapter. Next Sam chapter will probably take place in Volantis. I've got to figure out all of the characters that live in Volantis, and pull them all together. And I'm talking like Oberyn's Lady Nim's mom has to somehow appear, and then perhaps the characters fleeing from the first Sam chapter, and then which lord? There's shit. One of the lords, one of Stannis's men, like goes off to Volantis, and I'm forgetting his name for a second. Sunglass. I think it's Sunglass. Sunglass is there, so he has to appear. I haven't come up with the plot, but it's essentially going to be something going on there, and maybe some. If I can try to pull in some pirates from the Royne or something, try to bring in. Aeron is just going to be the battle chapter, so there's not much to spoil. Even though I'm not killing Aeron, but it's got to be the battle of blood happen. I have a whole video on that, so I think there's um, I think that there's going to be some blood in the water. So I think the ships are filled with blood, and and then there's going to be Aaron's gonna view a lot of that, but it's going to be the most it's Aaron. I don't know if I'm going to do Jamie next or Aaron next, but like it's got to be the the Aaron chapter has to be like you know it's got to be very dark and abstract and weird. Um, um, so it'll be different. It'll be dumb. It'll be different. Um, Danny remembers Viserys tell her that if she had been born sooner, she would have married Rhaegar, and none of this would have happened. Um, Does this support um, polygamy? Um, I don't think so. I mean, I see what you're saying. That he's saying that like you just needed to be born um, a few months early, and he would have done that. But I but you could also say that like oh he had to be she had to be born years and years early, and then it would have been fine. Um, because doesn't she say that if he hadn't been born a girl or something? I'm trying to think of this again. Here you go. Uh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so this is the quote we're looking at. Um, um, Danny pulled the lion pelt from about her shoulders. Viserys said once that it was my fault for being born too late. She had denied it hotly, she remembered, going as far to tell Viserys that it was his fault for not being born a girl. He beat her cruelly for that insolence. If I had been born more timely, he said, Rhaegar would have been married me instead of Elia, and it would have come out different. If Rhaegar had been happy with his wife, he wouldn't have needed the Stark girl. So no, he's not saying that like Danny should have been born a few months early. He's saying that Danny should have been born so many years early that it was before even he had married Elia. And so it's not a. In fact, the passage is completely against polygamy. He's saying that he would have married Daenerys instead of Elia. While if it was polygamy, he'd still be able to marry Elia. Um, um, oh, not polygamy, Page of Lies. Now I've got to rethink the whole thing as Page of Lies. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't know if it supports Page of Lies one way or the other. I'm trying to think of any aspect to it. Like I don't know. I don't know. I mean, keep in mind that like his lie is of course like he's been telling her his whole life that they're if the Page of Lies that they're siblings. But I'm trying to I don't know. Right. This I don't know. I don't think it supports it or in one way or the other. But um man, Tony, what up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Sir Tony of House Seld, so, sled. um. All right, I'm gonna do a couple more of these, and then I'm gonna head to bed. Um. Unless there's something else you want to talk about, Carmine.
Yeah, I did actually. A Dave and Dan interview that shed some light on what happened towards the end of Game of Thrones and how them hiring the movie writer is ridiculous.
Mm, mm. Oh, my wife took my last name. She would always make fun of me for being such a fanboy of yours. Anyway, we're divorced now. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I mean, one, it's amazing that like so much time has passed that we've been doing this for so long that that people's lives change quite a bit. Um, oh well, I mean I hope I wasn't the reason. No, of course it wasn't. But anyway, I hope things are going better that you found someone new because there's a lot of people out there. Um, are the Urfquifan Children of the Forest world building? What do you think this is, Carmine? Urfquivron? What is this? Oh my gosh. I've never heard. This is something that is. I'm sorry that I guess this is from the World of Ice and Fire that I missed. The Ifequivron, or Woodswalkers, are a vanished race who once inhabited the dense forest of northern Essos. Their name in the Dothraki language means those who walk in the woods. According to the account of the adventure Brian of Old Town, the Woodswalkers were small, shy, and gentle folk. Many maesters believed that they were the children of the forest. But he said that Brian of Old Town said that there were no Woodswalkers, but claimed that the blessed households left offerings of leaf, stone, and water. Oh, the buff. Okay. Some believe that they were extinguished by the Ibbenese, who conquered large territory south of Ib. Others believed that they went into hiding or fled to other lands. Huh. While the Ifricans still live in the northern forest, the Dothraki shun those lands, either out of reverence for the woods walkers or fear of their power. After they vanished, the Dothraki began attacking the Ibbenese territories. And the Dothraki still refer to the forest as the kingdom of the Ifricivran. What kind of name? City of Ghosts. I mean, obviously, we're supposed to think that these things are the children of the forest, and we're supposed to draw some sorts of parallels, right? That's the entire point, that somehow the Ibbenese are supposed to be seen as some sort of Andals or something, and the Dothraki perhaps had an agreement with them in the same way that the first men had an agreement with them. We're obviously supposed to think about these things. I'm just wondering where the name comes from. It's such a weird name. Um, Ifequivron. If a what a. I mean, he's just picking random sounds, or is there some like inside joke that I'm missing here? On who they could be. I don't think the world building is that important. I think the World of Ice and Fire is generally a not that important book. I think it's you're supposed to look at these tales generally like the Azor Ahai tales and see that there's many versions of them all around the world. And you're it's supposed to be a little misleading because you kind of like it's the same respect of like finding flood myths wherever around the world. You know, having a bunch of flood myths around the world doesn't mean the world was flooded. Okay, because that's stupid. like the world wasn't flooded. Um, and being like, well, they have flood myths in the Middle East, and then there's flood myths in India. It's like doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You could come up with like 500 flood myths from around the world. Doesn't mean the flood happened. It's just dumb. And it's kind of George R. R. Martin brings this kind of stuff up in Night Flyers where he says everybody's got a Volcran story and they're all wrong. So there is something to like, okay, we're supposed to obviously think they're the children of the forest, and we're supposed to think about these like this relationship and how it might be similar to what happened in Westeros, and we're supposed to think about Azor Ahai and the Last Hero and the Long Night and all of these sorts of things, and all of those stories are also like mostly wrong. There's going to be some elements of truth in them, but mostly wrong. That's the weird irony, right, of it is that you're all of these different tales are supposed to lend credence to the idea that it's true, but in fact they can all just be wrong. Ned's bones are in Marine. Trying to remember, like, because the dragon books can be there. I'm just trying to think of like how Ned's bones would end up. I mean, he might be like making a joke because obviously the like Gilly and the dragon books and all sorts of different things can make it to Marine, but how would Ned's bones get there? And why would Hallis Mullen take Ned's bones to Marine? But it would be, I would try to figure it out. Um, oh gosh. Keep it simple. The white hand brought to Tyrion by Thorn rotted away and didn't move. It's muscles that really animated it. Well, that's true. Um, but did the marrow inside his hand no, like did the marrow inside his hand also like rot away at the same time? Um, you know, uh, I mean, I get like obviously like a dead hand animating in general is a ridiculous idea, but um, how because you need like all sorts of things in your hand, like all the like if you cut the hand off, all the tendons and stuff would like elastically undo and stuff. There just it'd be no working it no matter what. But the fact that like they have he puts animated dead bodies in something is already so ridiculous. But one could easily make the argument about the marrow inside the finger bones. Um, um, odds Jamie kills the Night King one handed. Odds against him. He's practicing a lot. Um, Kingslayer moniker turns out to be a good thing. I'd love it. Huh. Well, again, there's not even a Night's King yet. I mean, in or at least a modern day Night's King in our story yet. So, one, we'd have to establish that a boss. Um, which I always think it was like boss battles are a bit ridiculous. I think that like I understand that like George R. Martin had all of these like plot points that Dan and Dave are ruining, but the one that really doesn't seem like it fits with George's writing is really the Night King, the modern day Night King. Um, and it's just because George R. Martin like trashes the end of Lord of the Rings so much, right? About how like it's just too simple. It's too simple to win that way, right? Um, I mean, I suppose you could argue that yes, killing the Night's King is simple, but then there was all the complexities afterwards with Daenerys versus Jon, and that stuff still lingers, and that's still a problem, and that's the Aragorn tax policy like criticism thing. But it just seems so weird to like have it be like a video game. You kill one guy and everybody like falls apart, like the boss battle thing. All of the you destroy that one ship and all the battle droids on Naboo stop working. You destroy that one, you close that portal and all of the minions in New York City all stop like fighting. It's so neat and easy. I just don't know like it that's what I like. I freaking like it just doesn't seem like a George thing to have something like that. Something so neat and easy that you kill one person and everything just everybody all your problems go away. All of the others die and all of the animated dead like just die. It's just so it's I don't know. It doesn't seem I mean not that George hasn't kind of done stuff like that, but I mean, where he just like, I think he kills all the jumpers and wild cards with one big tsunami, as a way to kill them all. But, uh, hmm, maybe. Um, institutional sexism on female name change sucks. Well, it's true that I mean, you should have equal rights to be able to for a man to be able to change his name to the woman's name or anything else. Trying to think. Let me look it up for Maryland. Um, in Maryland, anyone can choose any name after they're married, as long as he or she does so consistently and is not acting illegally. Yeah, so in Maryland, as a man, you can change your last name after you get married too. Um, and it actually even says here on their frequently asked questions, more men are changing their names for marriage. Because I think a lot of them are getting the hyphenated thing, so that there's like equality in the get married, you get a hyphen. Um, why do you think the others let Garrett live? I think he has pure firstman blood. The others probably have limits on who they can kill set in the pact. Well, there's the question of like how close to the others he was. So Will is the one hiding um, in the tree, and so I'm trying to think like, do we even know where Garrett is around the time? I want to say so Garrett remains with the horses while he and Will walk the last part. And so at this point, my guess is that Garrett sees the others come and then gets on his horse and just bolts. So he makes it to the wall. He can't get the horse over the wall, but he figures out how to go through the wall somehow. I mean, I don't know why he didn't bring his horse, but do they find him with a horse? He flees south of the wall. He's arrested outside a small holdfast. We actually don't know if he has the horse or not. I don't. Yeah, we know he's terrified. So I mean, I think he just rode away on his horse really fast. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's anything big on that. Um, as for like, who I'm trying to think about like if they spare any Northerners, first men. I mean, Vermeer Sixskins is killed by the others, and it's very clear he has a lot of First Men blood in him. And as most of the wildlings, I mean, we hear about them dying. So I don't think there's anything with the others like thinking people with First Men blood, have to be. be spared or anything like that. All right. I'm gonna do this last super chat, and then I gotta head to bed. Oh god, no more super chats. Oh my god, when did this? I was like all done. No more super chats. Okay. Could time traveling Bran be reanimating the whites? Ghost is the one who finds the white who attacked Mormont, and he's the one who alerts John. I certainly think that that's a possibility. That the um, that everything related to what happens with the whites um, seems to play into John becoming Lord Commander. You know, like the white that comes to the white that comes like it's kind of really ridiculous. Like the white that goes and attacks Jeor Mormont, like John, is able to like leave his cell, and he loses time, and the ghost brings him to fight that white at the exact right time, and the others are like in the their bodies are found um uh like in a werewood circle, right? And so like it's very it seems like it's all coordinated. So I think the animation is probably coordinated as well. And since we know that like um Cold Hands is dead, they certainly have the power to time traveling Brand certainly has the power to like animate whites too. I don't so I would say that like yeah, the ones that attack John are not, I don't think they're in the same um realm as like the others. I think different people can be animating different dead bodies. Um, did anyone did anyone tell George R. R. Martin that it's much faster to focus on the main story now than write other books, focus on world building? If I'm not, I'm gonna be mad. I don't know if anyone, I've seen George at different cons and getting questions, and people are pretty nice, and they also like, no one's gonna be a complete dick to George, to his face. I've never seen anyone do that to his face. I've seen plenty of Twitter comments and things like that, but I don't think I don't think I've never seen anyone say it to his face. Now, I think these two things are related. That he doesn't really know what he wants to do with the main story, and so he writes other stuff as a form of procrastination, and then that other stuff like grows. But now he's written so much of it, it feels like you have to do something with it, right? Like why? Like when people talk about like what's the point of the Quentin story, um, if the show can just eliminate it, Ariane and everything, and it's not going to amount to anything, then why is it even there? You know, everybody says, "Oh, we've been waiting so many years for the Winds of Winter," but in reality, like everybody's just been waiting for the sequel to A Storm of Swords. Like everyone like doesn't really accept that if like when you talk to like most fans, it's almost like they don't really accept that A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons are books. Like, yeah, I understand that they're there, but but at the same time, like they don't really think the Ironborn are important, and they don't really think that Aegon is important, and they don't really think that Quentin is important, right? They don't really think that Ariel Hota is important. They just think it's all meaningless filler, and they're all waiting for A Storm of Swords to to have a sequel. Um, and it's not like I blame them. Like A Dance with Dragons and a Feast for Crows is a completely it does veer off in a completely new direction. The show did pretty much eliminate those plot lines or make them useless, right? The show, like the Dornish story in the show, had nothing to do with anything. They eliminated Quentin. They turned Aerion's story into a Sand Snake story, and then they just made the Sand Snakes pointless. So the Dornish story was gone, and then the Euron story was also just nothing. Like, it led to a dragon getting killed. Like, that's it. Like, it didn't mean anything either. So, um, Cersei and the High Sparrow, like, that was an irrelevant story too. It didn't really have anything to do with anything. So, like, everything with the Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons is just, it's, it probably was George, like, not knowing what to do, so he just writes all this extra stuff. Maybe a little bit of people talk about that the Wheel of Time was actually like this trick of Robert Jordan to try to make money. Like, I got to extend this thing out. This is my payday. So a little bit of that. But I think it's easier to expand the story out, write new things, be more interested than actually like closing up the tale of the main characters. But I mean, he obviously, I think he knows. I mean, I think it's interesting that you say like it's faster to focus on the main story. I think that he just doesn't know how, and so he writes the other stuff. But that's what people have been really waiting. What they're waiting for is something that hasn't been here since the year 2000. We've been really waiting 24 years for the sequel to A Storm of Swords. But Carmine, do you have any ideas on that? You know what I'm talking about?
This is one of the complaints that people always, I'm just doing other stuff. This is one of the complaints that other people always throw around about George, is that all he wants to do is just world build instead of writing the story. I think on some level, there is a little bit to what you said about Robert Jordan's trick. He's just writing to just, keep making money. Robert Jordan never had an HBO deal. Robert Jordan never became a household name in the fantasy genre. I mean, for people in the know, sure, but I hate to break it to you, and Miss Amber might get on my case for this, but I don't think Robert Jordan's on the level of Tolkien and George R. R. Martin. So nothing really catapulted him. Even the Amazon show, sorry, but
What's funny is that like the Feast for Crows, Dance with Dragons irrelevant shit is the stuff that like I fell in love with, that like I thought was really fascinating.
Oh, we know.
Yeah,
we're reading the fanfic. We know.
Like, how did all of this come into the story, and how is it relevant? Because imagine you're telling the story of Three Little Pigs, and you're like, okay, I'm going to tell you this. This is George R. R. Martin telling the story of Three Little Pigs. Okay, so Three Little Pigs. One built a house of straw. One built a house of made of sticks, and the other built a house of made of bricks. And then the wolf comes to the little piggy who had his house built of straw, and he says, "Let me in." And he says, "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." So he huffs and he puffs and he blows that house down. And then he goes to the house and he eats the little pig up. He goes to the second house, and he says, "Let me in, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." He huffs and he puffs and he blows the house down, eats that little pig up. And then comes a unicorn and a fairy, and they transform the wolf into a seal, and the seal then heads into the ocean. And you're like, whoa, where's this story going? This was not going where I thought it was going. Wait, the wolf is now in the sea, and there's a fairy and a unicorn? Yes. And it's like you're waiting, like, so many people are like, but he's eventually going to come back and just fucking try to blow down the brick house, right? Like, that's what's got to happen. That's what happened in the show. That's what happens in other fantasy books. Like, that's what happened in his original outline, right? Like, that's what's got to happen. And you're like, well, right now, the big bad wolf is under the ocean with a unicorn and a fairy. And everybody's waiting for the wolf to come back. They're waiting for him to transform back from a mermaid into a wolf and go to the brick house. We've been waiting 24 years to that, but like, it's just that's where we are. What's really gonna happen is Wolf's never coming back. Never fucking coming back. But this is funny. Jamie pushes Bran down this sinkhole again. You imagine Bran gets to the top, and then out of fucking nowhere, Jamie's there, and he just pushes Bran back.
You thought the story was over, but no, I still got to pay more rent. Continue.
Anyway, Kyle the Bears. Don't tell me what to do. Oh, jeez.
Don't even scroll down, homie, because honestly, I would skip these next two super chats because motherfuckers don't like to listen. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, Hakapaka, whatever your name is. You're my server. You're a cool dude, but like, I would just skip these. Motherfuckers don't like to listen.
But luckily, this one's easy. Have you listened to Dan Carlin Supernova in the U series? I'm sorry, I haven't. I'm sorry. And then I have to head to bed after this. Speaking of last names, you eventually, in many, many years from now, won't everyone have the same last name through marriages, wiping out maiden names? I don't think so, because I think new names get created faster than other names get like wiped out. I think. Just because of like translation issues and language changes and people coming up with stuff and things like that. I think people like to have unique names. I think new names, like eventually people are going to start inventing last names, stuff like that. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you, Carmine, for staying with me.
We'll have to cover the Dave and Dan interview thing in like a separate video, but it's it's gonna be me defending Dave and Dan again, and rightly so.
All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks everyone. I'll see you guys next week. Later.